Okay, I was asked to also talk a little about what's going on in our industry and to provide a little silver lining to the current context. Because we all look at the newspapers and we see the headlines every day, and the headlines are pretty grim. These are some of the typical things that just were in the New York Times just 2 weeks ago. So it's pretty scary out there for the media world based upon mass media reports. And our industry is not immune. We're seeing renewal rates down among many of our members. We're seeing marketing and sales response rates are declining. We're seeing subscription product sales are down, and the mix, people are relying more and more on one-shot products. Conference revenues have been declining across the board for most of us. And many of us have had to lay off very good people, so it's been certainly a tough time. And we all know that we're in a pretty severe economic recession that's hit most of the world. Certainly the U.S. and the developed economies, and even India and China have slowed down considerably. This cartoon, I think, describes it pretty well, how I sometimes feel. Cartoon says, "It's true, Caesar, Rome is declining, but I expect it to pick up in the next quarter." And sometimes I kind of feel like we're fine-tuning our forestry trials or our marketing pieces while Rome is burning. But the context, as I look at it, is that just while there is a lot of negativity, fear, and confusion out there, there's also a lot of fog, because there's really two things that are happening at the same time here. One is we are living through a very severe recession, and that is causing our customers to seize up on spending anything that they perceive as not essential. And that is a cyclical issue. And then the other thing that's happening at the same time is the digital shift that's taking place among many of our customers. And some of us are in industries and serving people that might be a little more on the leading edge, and some might be serving farmers and have a little more time. But anyone who has children or knows kids knows that the habits of people are changing at a very, very rapid pace. My kids don't even need TV anymore. I had my daughter who's 12. I told her, okay, no more TV on school nights, and she said fine. She turned on her computer and started watching on Hulu, American Idol. So that, one of the things that I sometimes look at is there's different business models out there within business media. And along one matrix here, we have one of the dimensions is who pays. Is it an advertising-driven media, or is it a subscriber, the end user pays for the information? And on the other axis is whether it's traditional media, paper-based, for instance, versus new media. And we're seeing a lot of the headlines are in the bottom left box. It's traditional media that's advertising supported. It's the trade magazines, it's the newspapers, it's the yellow pages. And most of us, fortunately, are in the bottom right, moving up to the top right, and so we're a little more immune. But I just want to also caution us that just gives us a little more time. These trends are going to take place in our markets as well. It just gives us a little head start to kind of see and adjust as rapidly as we can. Because at the end of the day, most of us are news providers, and we're facing a lot of pressure from a lot of different dimensions. Our customers are demanding more from us for less money, and we have new competition coming in. We have these bloggers who are coming in, some of them providing pretty good information for free. So there's all kinds of sources coming from all directions that are challenging us. And so we need to find ways to change our business model, either reduce our costs dramatically by finding new editorial models, like aggregating other people's stuff like they do to us versus originally reporting everything as we have traditionally, and or finding ways to add more value. And that certainly is a preferred path for us. But the good news is that most of our products, the information and data we provide, is part of a larger process. I mean, I sometimes look at what we have. It's kind of like if the equivalent would be in the food business. Most of us have been in the grocery business. We sell the ingredients that people use to then make their meal. And you think about, you go to a nice restaurant, somebody takes that ingredient, they mix those together, they add value, and you pay a lot for it. But we're still selling the raw material, the data that lets people, that people used to then make another decision. our products usually don't provide, comfort to somebody or immediate satisfaction. It's an input into something that they're doing. And usually the news that we provide or the regulatory information we provide, people have to analyze it and then use it to make better decisions. So the good news is that people will pay a lot for those things. So if we can migrate up from the news and the data that we've been providing into providing analysis or ideally helping make better decisions, there's a lot of value there. I came from the consulting world where we used to charge hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to big companies to make better decisions, data-driven decisions. And so if we can just even move part of the way up there, and in our businesses we always try to do that. We look at, okay, for $300 you get the data, but for $3,000 we might tell you how some people are dealing with this, and for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, we'll tell you what you need to specifically do based upon what's happening here. So, I think that's a big opportunity area to find different areas of value added. Here's just a quick chart from a Verona-Suler study of media and where they have seen it growing over the last 5 years and their forecast over the next 5 years. But rather than go into the detail, the good news is that most of the bad stuff is happening in that advertising-driven media that we're talking about, the newspapers, the yellow pages, radio, down there. And most of us are up there. We're in the business information space. It has been growing, and it is forecast to continue to grow. So I'm just going to give a few examples of how do you move up move up what we call the pyramid. How do you go from just providing data and information to providing analysis or ideally custom advice? And I'm going to give just a quick example from one of our companies, which is called Pyramid Research. It was a traditional newsletter company that served the telecom and media markets. And we then built databases, and then we moved into syndicated research where we took our databases and started selling them rather than just one-off subscriptions to the data. And then we started moving in and developing packaged services, kind of like a Gartner Group model, where for a package price, usually starting at $25,000, they would get a monthly, what we used to call a newsletter. We now call it a competitive briefing on what was happening in the market. It was the same thing, but different term. But then we would also give them analyst white papers throughout the year. We'd give them access to our analysts for a few hours a year as part of that package. But the perception was that we were now a substitute for high-priced consulting rather than just a newsletter company, and we were able to extract a lot more revenue from each of those client engagements and add a lot more value to them. And over time, it actually improved our renewal rates. We went from in the high 60s to almost 90% renewal rates based upon, while we were at the same time increasing our prices 10 times on average. Another company that we have, Exchange Networks, we're doing a similar thing where we've taken a market called the wealth management space, and we've started with free e-newsletters, and now we're moving into conferences and high-priced research and things like that. But there's lots of models in our industry. Lawyers.com is Martindale Hubbell. They took an old directory, and they've now put it into a lead generation machine. Light Reading, another innovative company that started off with e-newsletters and a website with advertising for the telecom industry, and they've moved into conferences and white papers and lead generation businesses. Corporate Executive Board, another very innovative company. They took what we would have considered syndicated research, and they've created these peer networks, and they charge $25,000 and above to bring the ideas, best practices from different business groups together. They bring them together physically a few times a year, but most of what they're doing is they're surveying people and giving them back information about their own group. And my last example is Bloomberg, who a few years ago they had already penetrated their core market of investment banking. They had all this financial data. But one of the things they did that I thought was really innovative is 2.5 years ago, they decided to put new front ends on their data. And so rather than just selling Goldman Sachs, 5,000 terminals, which they had already done, they said we're going to package a front end. The page that a fixed income trader will look at will be different than the front page that an equity analyst will look at. And they created 8 different screens for 8 different end users, all using the same backup data behind it. But by doing that, they were able to start charging a lot more. So instead of Goldman Sachs having to buy one service, they had to buy 8. And that's one of the ways in which they've been able to